Cool. So welcome everyone to episode 10 of Stories with My Dad. As I said earlier, we're just starting here on my phone. My computer's having some issues, so we might need to anyways, just letting you know. But welcome to Stories with My Dad, episode 10. We are here. We're grateful to be here on Zoom. The topic today is, so what if I die?
Say it truthfully and sincerely.
There we go. So we're going to be chatting a bit about that, and just diving in. And my dad has given me a few things that he wants me to read throughout. I had it prepped on my computer, but my computer's not working. So we're just going to work with it. We're going to work with things as we do, because that's what life is all about anyways. As always, I like to start with 3 breaths just to ground us together. And just as we're here in this circle, in this space of sharing and being together and just supporting, sharing our stories, we'll just take some breaths together. So these breaths, I'm going to just place my hands on my heart, but you can place your hands where you feel comfortable at this time. And I'm going to breathe in through my nose, and I'm going to breathe out through my mouth and through my body, and just releasing through. So here we are, breathing in and releasing out. And second breath, breathing in. And releasing out through the body. And one more grounding breath, breathing in. And releasing out through the body. And I just want to give thanks for the land that we're on as we continue. I want to give thanks for this land, this place that we are meeting upon, Toronto. I'm grateful and just pay respects to the original ancestors of this land, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat people, and the Mississaugas of the Credit, all tribes, both named and unnamed. We just acknowledge that this land is stolen land, and we just ask for the blessing of those ancestors and as we gather on this land. So we take a moment and we also thank our ancestors for all the ways that they have paid for us as well. And this work of gathering intergenerationally and being together and honoring them as well. So we just take a moment to breathe that in. Okay, beautiful. All right. So, Stories with My Dad, giving testimony to truth in the hope that progress will be made, if only in our way of thinking and understanding each other. So that's something that we read every week. All right. Specifically today, this is the theme for today. And this particular reading is coming from 2 pages from this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Oh, I just wanted to, yeah. Okay, perfect. Don't sweat the small stuff. So I'm just going to read. Oh, and also, guess what? My computer turned on. Slow still, but it turned on. Okay, so I'm going to read this here. 21. So it goes. Imagine yourself at your own funeral. This strategy is a little scary for some people, but universally effective at reminding us of what's most important in our lives. When we look back on our lives, how many of us are going to be pleased at how uptight we were? Almost universally, when people look back on their lives while on their deathbed, they wish that their priorities had been quite different. With few exceptions, people wish they hadn't sweated the small stuff so much. Instead, they wish they had spent more time with people and activities that they truly love, and less time worrying about aspects of life that, upon deeper examination, really don't matter all that much. Imagining yourself at your own funeral allows you to look back at your life while you still have the chance to make some important changes. While it can be a little scary or painful, it's a good idea to consider your own death and, in the process, your life. Doing so will remind you of the kind of person you want to be and the priorities that are most important to you. If you're at all like me, you'll probably get a wake-up call that can be an excellent source of change. Mhm. So hold that for a second, Dad. Well, I have a question that we can just spearhead while we are still zoning up this. Why do we think that we are afraid? Why are majority of people afraid to talk about death? That's a question that I would love to pose to us as a group gathering today. Yeah, and anyone, like, I'm just curious, like, why do we think that we're afraid to talk about it, or we don't like to talk about it?
Oh,
People are afraid to face their own immortality.
True. Yeah. Like the reality of that. Is that Kieran, by the way? I'm on my phone, so I can't see everybody. Hi, Kieran.
I
Yay.
can answer. Can I talk?
Greetings,
Yeah, sure.
Dad. Greetings, Dad. Good to see you. Long time.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Well, I have an answer for that question. That they say that we as human beings get involved in all kinds of things because we don't want to think about the idea that we're going to die.
Mhm.
But there's a good side to this. It says that the gods envy us people, and the reason for that is, as Jasmine said, we are immortals. I mean, we are mortal. She said she would not want to be immortal because she don't want to stay on this world all the time. So it's
Not all the time.
it's a good thing in a way, because I was at a funeral in Barbados some years back, and the Reverend says we should thank God for death, because if they didn't have death, some people would be sick for like 400 years. So, so that's a side you can think about, you know. I mean, nobody wants to die when they're nice and healthy, you know, that you do the best. This session is supposed to enlighten us about the fact that, because when you die, you die, you don't know. You mean you're not there. So there's no point worrying about it. You just drop dead, whether you're sick or not. So the idea is to try to live in a way that you want to. A few people have told me they don't want to talk about death, but the problem is when you die, somebody has to go to the funeral home, get the priest and all that. So somebody has to do these things. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But the problem is, if you think about it, you should probably do some of these things before you die. I don't know. Somebody has to do it for you.
Yeah.
Whether it's your brother, your wife, your sister, your daughter. So it's something to think about.
But I think that, yeah, and what Kieran's saying about, and you're also saying it too, like just facing your own mortality or the reality that it will happen for you. For me, I also think about like having experienced like some very close deaths. Like I haven't experienced parent death, obviously, but I've experienced like very close aunt death and, you know, friend death and family member death. And yeah, in those times, I'm like, I think as a human being, I fear also that suffering and that loss of, oh my gosh, like death is so final. Like I can't, like, I'm not going to see this person at all, or, you know, this animal or this thing or whatever. And I think that, yeah, it's like facing it for yourself, but also I think there's a fear of just it happening to you losing as well. But I think, you know, Dad, you're going to talk about this more, but, you know, obviously we know that in all loss, there's gain, and that death and life and rebirth, it's like this cycle. We're so close on this computer, like, so.
Well, we had the cat here with Jazz's cat called Rancid, very nice cat. And he lived to 20 years, and Jazz was in the States. I cried. I mean, we were sad. And the veterinarian told me, Mr. Gibbons, the cat lived a long time. He had a nice life. You don't have to be sorry about it. I mean, but it was right. We did miss the cat, believe it or not. I actually did cry, and I'm not much of a crying guy, but I cried that day.
Yeah.
So we do things for him. He's buried down in Lancaster, so we got these pictures down there. We put a lamp and all this stuff, you know. And to keep that grave, believe it or not, better than human graves. It's nice. It really is nice. Very good. I haven't gone this year, but I've gone a few times to look for him, and it's good stuff.
Yeah. If anyone else has any response to that, I'll just leave some time for that. If not, then we'll just keep moving forward.
All right, go ahead.
I think.
So,
yeah.
You want to do my thing then? Or can you?
I think so. I'll wait for the Zoom to do the YouTube stuff. But yeah, you can go ahead and continue.
All right. Well, the death thing for me is, like I said, my mom died when I was a very young guy. I can't say that I had any impact when I was only 3, but my sisters and brothers who were much older, they know about that than me. But people would ask me all the time if I miss my mom. Listen, if you don't have your mom, trust me, you're going to miss her. I mean, you have your nice aunts and this, but your mom is probably the most important. But I had my dad who kind of covered some of the same areas. And so I can't sit down and say, yeah, I miss my mom and all, but I can't. Obviously I miss her as a young guy. I couldn't interpret that in any proper way. But I mean, now that I'm a grown guy, the mom is important stuff. So I never been able to say, I love you, mom, or anything like that. I only have one memory of my mom, and I felt, youngsters are very hard. As I was holding on to the back of this car and I fell and busted my lip. This is the only memory I have. And to say the reason I have that memory because it was painful. So she came out to the house and grabbed me and took me back in. That's it. That's the only memory I have of my mom. And I was in the same bed the night when she died too, but I don't remember a lot of that.
Mhm.
So I've discussed, and I know of people that have died, young people from my school. So I've seen death, basically. So it's not like it bothers me that much, but again, I don't really want to die. So I've gone around and I've asked a few friends of mine what they would say to put on my monument. And I told them if I like what they say, I would put it on. Now, I don't know. I've got a few that I will read that. I got a few responses, and I have my own response to what I want to put for myself too. But the one thing I want to read here quickly is a card that was given to me by Jasmine about 4 years ago, and it's kind of humbled me somewhat. And it says here, Christmas is the time the rest of us try to be more like you, hoping it's merry. It's kind of a humbling card because she's almost telling me, well, I don't know, everybody wants to be like you that around this time, which is not a bad thing because I love Christmas. So I wanted to read that. And there's a next card I have here. I don't know if Joyce is on today or not, but there was a gentleman that was a police officer with me and he got killed. He got killed the 21st of September, 81. So in those days, I don't know, maybe my name was around a little bit more because they didn't have a lot of black cops. And a lot of people, for some reason, thought it was me that was dead. And this is the true story. So she came to the house, I have it written here, the 25th of a couple of days later, and she gave me this card, and it says, a cheery hello, and a line to say too, that the warmest thoughts ever are right there with you. Jimmy, my thoughts and prayers are with you today and always. Take care. Love, Joyce. But the problem is, I'm not the one that was dead. Keep this in mind now.
Right.
I was still alive. So, but for some reason, this thing resonated that people, when they came over and says, a Bajan police officer with 2 kids, you weren't born yet. And if I was dead, you would be somebody else's kid. But that's what it said. And, it was kind of scary to think that people thought I was dead, but that's what happened.
Yeah.
However, so I want to share a few things I have here that I've asked people. This has happened a couple of years ago, but I kept these things because I plan to put them on the monument when I buy it. Haven't bought it yet, but I discussed it. I'm not going to mention the names that read these things. So if you hear something that you think you wrote, it's you, right? So it says here, I cannot imagine a day without your infectious laughter. I will miss you, brotherly and frank discussions. That's one person. Another person wrote, I know someday I will not be able to hear it either because one or both of us has transitioned, a fancy word for elders that call it Passover. You are the only one I can call past midnight and be able to have a lively, enjoyable conversation on several spiritual topics which covered all areas of human experience. I will miss you, brotherly and frank discussions. No mention the name. Next one, blank. Loving you was so easy. That's the next person. Third, this is something that I would like to put on my monument myself. It said, good guy, help others. Okay? And the other thing that I would put, this is something that I wrote years ago too. I would like to believe that the world is the tiniest of bits better because I have had the privilege to be part of it. Kindness should never be mistaken for weakness. I wrote that. That's for me. This other one here, I wouldn't mention the name again. To a dearly beloved, blah, blah, generous, fine, kind, bold, and loyal. Life would not have been the same without you. Beautiful, I love it. Don't mention the name, but I'm sure the person I wrote that might know, oh, that was me. Next one. To my best friend, I could not think of a day without you in it. No kidding. Nice. So that's my piece for people that I don't know if they're all gonna go on my money, but they did present their stuff, and I would make
Right.
a choice.
Yay, we're on the computer. Yay. So yeah, I was just saying that I think it's an interesting exercise to do. And yeah, I mean, this idea of waiting until folks are gone to say what you think about them, you know, as you always say, you don't really want that
No,
kind of thing happening. Well, anyways, what do you say? You say you don't really want to
No, I don't want a
have
funeral
a
service.
funeral as such.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yesterday, I attended something called a fire memorial. This young lady ran it, and it was beautiful.
Oh, the sex ceremony.
Huh?
Fire ceremony.
Fire ceremony. So I'm thinking that's what I want, and I'm thinking.
Okay, well, there you go.
Doing one for my dad and for my cousin that day. It was very good. I had never been through it before with Jasmine, but it was super. And we even had an audience in the park while we were there doing our thing. So that would be something that I don't mind, rather than people saying things they don't really want to say. I was at a funeral once, and the girl after told me, "Well, Jim, I told all lies when I was up there. I shouldn't." I said, "Well, why? Just say that." That's what she told me. She had to lie about saying her brother was a nice guy.
Well, I mean,
and
I
all this
shouldn't
stuff.
laugh, actually.
And I told her, "Well, why do you have to?" But people do that, and then it's not funny. If the guy was not a nice guy when he was alive, it's going to be pretty bad for him to be a nice guy after he dies. Trust me. So I don't know. So
Yeah,
I would prefer only the people that really genuinely want to come to the thing come. Because I've gone to funerals where I hear people shouting at each other, but they're not out there at the funeral, but they're not really paying any attention to the stuff. And that's the time where you should be doing that if you're going. But they go to gossip, so I don't see the point of that myself. So,
right.
But that's just a personal thing. So
I
that's
mean,
why I
you have
don't
a
want
point there. But I think there's something to be said about also in this thought about around, like, you know, when we're saying how we feel about someone or whatever, it's like we need to just, I find that it's like there's just these, okay, birthdays or, you know, these particular days and times, but it's really just like, it should be like all the time. It should be celebrated. We should be celebrating all the time. For those of you who are joining us on Instagram, this is Stories with My Dad, episode 10. We are actually talking about life and death, but really a bit more death, right, Dad? A bit more death.
Well, we feel
not
that
in a
it's
morbid
still
way.
living.
Yeah.
The idea here is that if you listen to Rumi's poem later, you didn't die. Rumi says, like he's gone to a place of nowhere. It's an interesting poem.
That's kind of interesting.
But he says, when you see me ride, go down, don't cry for me, watch me ride. So, and it's not funny, he's serious. Rumi is a poet from Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is in the news now, so we should pay attention to what he's saying. So I see it as a good thing. Again, when you die, you don't know. You just die. So it's not like you can come up and say, why did I die? So it's a good idea to think about it while you're living and have some fun.
We also, none of us have died. Like we've only lived. Like we don't really know what's up when we actually
nobody does
die.
People say that they know they're going to come back and all of that, but they don't know. I mean, I dream all the time, and I dream about my dad. I don't really know what's going on in these dreams. I mean, Tula can maybe, I'm supposed to discuss a few of them with her because she's a dream person, but I dream every night. But my dreams are not about death particularly, but it's about living. I dreamed my dad died, though. That's true. 2 weeks before he did. Now, after I said that, some of my friends told me don't tell them if I see them in their dream, they're a little bit concerned. But I don't see what the problem is anyway. I don't dream anybody else has died, but the time you dream about me, don't tell me. I don't want to hear. Okay. And they think there's something weird about it, but there's nothing weird about it. I dream all the time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just leave some space if anyone has any response to any of that, like, you know, this whole exercise around, you know, getting the friends to write down what they would say on your monument.
Well, I did.
Like,
I'm curious to know if you're believers of, if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all in that particular funeralistic atmosphere. Just curious on your thoughts.
But I believe that's the point of my point. That's what I said. I don't want people coming in saying, "Man, he was a jerk." What's the point of coming in to say that? Say that bit of my life won't give. So I would prefer the people that come in to really to be nice about it. I don't want somebody coming to the funeral and talking this crap. So, and you're right. So, but people do that. They'll come and they'll say all this crap to go home and say, man, he was no good, man. I don't think that's necessary. But again, it's a personal thing, you know? So that's why I'm not interested in the funeral service. I now thinking about the fire thing is great, you know, you play the music, man. and I had people in Barbados, you know, they go to the funeral, to the grave and do that, you know. They
Like
sing,
the white spiritual Baptist?
I seen them. They go there, they keep all their service there, they jump up and dance, and it's good stuff. They're literally not sad, you know. They're saying, look, we're celebrating this man's life, let's have some fun.
Yeah, well, it is. Well, that's why I'm saying it. Like it's like none of us have actually done it yet. Yeah. So it's like, but yeah, I think what you're saying, Kieran, with the, like, you know, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I think that totally is something that should ring true. I totally believe that, and should ring true in while the person's alive, and you know what I mean? Also after, because it's like, yeah, the same way it's not cool if people go to a funeral and then they're just kind of like chatting or whatever. It's like some kind of thing after, is, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really.
But that's not the purpose, reason for it. You're celebrating the man's life. You listen up, you know.
It's the same way that you wouldn't want to go and also be not real about, like, do you know what I mean? Like, if you thought the person was a jerk, but you're kind of like there in this kind of, I don't know, like, because I've always respected what you've said about that, because you've been like, hey, if people didn't like me, they don't need to come to my funeral. And I actually think that that's really kind of just okay. But I think there's the ritual.
I don't want them to come anyway if they don't like me. What's the point of coming? This is supposed to be fun.
But I think that people make exceptions. That's what you're saying. You're saying people shouldn't make exceptions necessarily for that.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
But you know, if somebody doesn't show up, somebody's auntie is going to be calling your mother and saying what happened and this and that and whatever. So you show up, and then what do? Do you be authentic and say this person was a jerk, or because people don't want to hear that at a funeral, do you say nothing? Because you know you have to, your face has to show, because your mother's not going to let you forget that your face didn't show.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, it's true. I mean, it's also like, but I guess to further that, it's like, you know, the auntie or the mom or whoever will get upset. Does that perceived possible upsetness stop the truth of your authentic truth and your authentic action? And then if so, you know, like how do we find the balance? Because I do believe that, like, we should, that remaining true to ourself and what we really feel like is best for us in a moment in time is best. And that if we're in the trueness of, like, our spirit feeling grounded in our truth, that's the best decision. And sometimes I believe that truth will upset an auntie or a mom or somebody. And then my question is it worth it? Or is it, you know, am I running from that conflict to not be in my authentic truth? These are some of the things that come up when you say that. I'm like, these are good questions. I mean, I understand it. I'm like, I don't want the aunties to be vexed with me neither.
Well, I have a good buddy of mine that another guy died that we knew. I went to that guy's funeral, but my buddy told me, Jim, I'm not going. That guy's a jerk. I'm not going to his funeral. He's not a good guy. And that's what he told me. I'm not going. I don't like him. He was never a good guy. Mess around the guys at cricket. So I'm not going. So he never went. But Eddie, do you remember what happened at your father's funeral? One of your uncles? You can give that story when he said something about owing money. You remember that?
Well, yeah.
I thought remember what he said. It was your uncle. And you told me he's a bit of a, why is he saying that at the funeral?
Those are super religious. They fall into the trap of like super religious kind of rules and regulations. There's just so much irony with religion, and so that's kind of it kind of forces you to rethink and maybe grow apart, or just grow with yourself and see what you love and what you really gravitate to in life. And so I remember that time, and interesting that you actually mentioned it, because now I remember it. And I thought I
do talk about it every now and again when I'm
that was the craziest, dumbest thing that anybody could ever say in a few. What the guy said was, I mean, he's not even my uncle. He was the uncle of my wife's husband.
Oh, okay. I thought he was your uncle.
My aunt.
All right.
He was the other side.
Right.
Like he was the So what he said was, he was doing a speech, and then he said, "Oh, by the way, if there's anybody here that owes this man who is my father," so he said, "If there's anybody here that my father owes money, please let them speak now."
Imagine that, eh?
And I'm like, that is just, where'd this come from? That's the first time I've ever heard that.
At a
I'm in
funeral?
tears, I'm crying, I'm in grief. And he comes out saying that if my father owes anybody money, please let them speak. Who the hell is going to speak?
Right.
Who's going to
He
speak?
did.
Wow.
So I asked Eddie whether he's going to pay the money. I remember that because
Wow.
I said, yeah, he told me, no, forget him. He's at a
That's
funeral.
crazy.
So there you go. So
Well,
that
yeah,
should not be said
that's
at a funeral.
crazy.
But if I could just say, death is something that if we just stand back and watch and observe, it brings out the best in people. So if you kind of like be an observer, as we are, we're natural observers through life, through the universe. And if we just observe what's happening around us and see many different cultures would honor death in a certain way, or you have your proceedings in a certain way. And for me, I've been through a lot of different funerals, and it's good to observe what they do, and that's all it is. It's just an observation, nothing to do with me, nothing to do with how I live my life. It's just an observation, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. And then I figured now that it came, I just popped in. I will run that by you. Know, we're talking about
That's
Bitcoin. Now I
crazy.
do mention that every now and again. I that's something that kind of is a sore point for me. This guy talking the announcements at your dad's funeral. So sorry to remind you about it, but hey.
Well, yeah, no, it's it's quite interesting. The thing about that, if I could just say one more thing.
Oh, please, absolutely.
I had some travels through India, and it happened in 2010. I traveled extensively for 3 years through India. And sorry, my kids are just coming in now.
Oh, that's okay. Let them come.
So what happened was
She's got two boys.
the spiritual awakened, and this idea about death, and I'm really glad that you guys are talking about it. I'm all for it because I would love to hear more about it. Like I said, I'm just an observer, right? And I want to hear what people have to say about it. But what happened was, it appears the idea of death and fear are interlinked. So what happened was, once I traveled about 2 weeks in India, my fear disappeared. Like I felt empowered. I felt spiritually open. I felt like the universe is my oyster and I could do anything. And I was connected to the earth because, my background is
Don't apologize. It's all good. We love the children.
Sorry.
They're a part of the circle.
So the idea of death, so fear. So that was the first time in my life that the fear slowly went away through my experiences in India. As the fear went away, I didn't fear death anymore because I sort of understood more of myself, who I am, why am I here, what am I doing, and all that fear stuff went away. And coincidentally, the idea of dying and the fear of dying went away as well.
Wow. So the more you became in tune with yourself, the less fear you had in general, which then also allowed you to have less fear about death in general as well.
Death never, even now, it doesn't bother me because
yeah,
in a sense, death is kind of like for the living, really, because
yes,
right. So when you die, you're depends what you believe in. Like you move on to another entity or form, or you get reincarnated somewhere else, or your soul moves on to another soul or somewhere else. But the idea of death is really for the living, and the living is the one that are really dying, so to speak.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Well, that's the thing,
Absolutely. Death is for the living. The living are the ones that are dying. Oh my gosh, yes, that is it.
A little later on here, we would explain that there's a beautiful song we have at the end of the show, really explains some of the stuff we're talking. I don't have any fear of dying. I mean, the idea of dying and leaving my family and stuff and friends
Yeah,
might
I
sing.
don't
But
wanna-
I mean, hey, on the other hand, it says that when you leave the earth, we are all angels, by the way, in this section. Everybody here is an angel. So keep this in mind. When you leave the earth is going to be missing you. But when you get to heaven, guess what? They gain. So think about that now. No, that's what the song says, and I go for that. So you don't have to feel too bad. When you leave the earth, too bad, you're going to be missing. But when you get to heaven, though, they have a next angel. The setup there is even better. Didn't think you could make heaven better, did you? But there you go. That's what it says. You'll hear that song tonight later. Beautiful stuff. And this section is one of my most exciting in a way because it's a topic that I guess, like, I was running it by people, and I even talked to the lady that if I die and she's around, she's going to do my service. She already done, no problem, I'll run everything. I've already done all of that. I haven't bought the lot yet, but we're in the process, so, So I have no problem doing those things, it's easy. In the will, I wrote right in there what I want. No funeral service. I told Jasmine.
But now you said you might want some fire.
Oh yeah, but the
ceremony,
fire,
so
but that's different.
that's nice.
That's not people coming up talking crap all the time. They do the fire, the dance.
the dancing and the music. Yeah.
Keep the fire burning. That's the name of the song.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Are there any other responses? I think I see Tula has.
Hi, it's Tula. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly. Hi, Tula.
We can't see you, but we can
Oh,
hear you.
hi, how are you?
Well, how are you?
No, I decided that I'm having a bad hair day, so I'm not
That's
on the
fine. You're all
video
good.
today.
Trust me, you still look like an angel, although I
Yeah.
can't see your face.
Well, it's an interesting thing to talk about angels, but I was going to say in reference to what we were just talking about a few minutes ago, that while we're living, we all have different aspects of our personality. Some are good and some are bad. And, one way of looking at it, my personal philosophy is that we're here, of course, we're here to accomplish things in the world, but we're here spiritually to expand our ability to love. And that can be very difficult given that we have all these different aspects to our personality. And of course, even a person that I might say is not a good person, it's entirely possible that there are other people who love this person and completely consider them a good person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like their children, for instance. It's a very complex thing. And of course, all these funeral rituals that different cultures have, I think, are designed to help the spirit go into some other realm, and also to celebrate the extent to which any person, no matter how bad they seem, has loved other people and brought something to other people, and everyone does in some way. And even when they're negative, what they bring to people around them is the struggle to deal with this negativity, to deal with their own negativity. So it's such an interaction that we have with each other when we're alive. And it is kind of a wonderful spiritual celebration when a person passes and says, well, okay, this time around it's done. And we celebrate that, and we're also humbled by that because it's our turn coming up, and who knows, there are certainly people in each of our lives who would have things that are not so kind to say about us if they, yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to add that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
Tula, I would like to
absolutely.
comment on what you're saying. So basically, what you're saying sounds very interesting. So what would you say to the folks who goes to that funeral and the sister that is saying things about the brother that's not correct? Do you think, based on what you were saying, is that okay then? Should that be accepted? I wouldn't do it, but I'm saying, basically you're saying that person still have good attitude, so, but people would have said it. But this is a sister that told me everything she said up there was a lie. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm not going to get into any kind of conflict with the person there. I happen to know as a psychologist that when we judge other people and whatever, we're often, not all the time, we're often talking about ourselves. Really, it's more about us than the other person. Now, there are people who've done some pretty bad things, but it's not usual that they get praised really highly if everyone knows about the bad things that they've done, right? Murders and,
Okay.
you know, those kinds of things. But, you know, so I would just sort of nod, but not agree and not disagree, because it's not appropriate to get into a conflict at a funeral about whether someone's good or bad.
Right.
But maybe then the
The
people
person who does that is probably,
So maybe
yeah.
rather than yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, because this is just my opinion, it's my personal orientation. If I go to someone's, you know, either funeral service in church or a memorial, I go with my heart open and with love in my heart, so that no matter who they are on this particular occasion, that's what I'm there for, to, you know, to respect that and to sort of rejoice in that for themselves. If it's someone that's close to me, of course, I'm also crying and grieving for my loss, because that person's no longer in my life. I don't think I've ever had any idea that any funeral, I've been to a lot of funerals because I hang out at a senior center. And I've never been under any illusion that any person is all good or all bad, but that doesn't really matter at that point. It's just the end of their journey on earth this time around. Anyway, I'm talking too much, sorry.
That's all right.
No, you're
That's
fine.
good.
It's all
Well,
good.
I think that's a very interesting thing, because the same lady I'm talking about, I know she can probably still believe these things about her brother, even if she thinks they were like. So maybe there's nothing wrong with that in a way. If you look at it from that perspective, she's given the last send off. So rather than go up and say something goofy, she figured she'll say the nice thing. So maybe there's something to think about. I would prefer that person to stay away from my stuff, though, if they feel that way. That, again, this is personal. I don't want them there. I prefer them.
Well, I mean, well, I've been to a lot of funerals too, where somebody gets up and gives a eulogy. And, you know, if I know the person and lots of other people there know the person, somebody will say something humorously and we know exactly what they mean. But
Right,
at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Good perspective.
I mean, I just lost my mother, as you know, and when I remember my mother, I now think of all the little conflicts that we had, and, you know, little events and dramas. And I think, you know, it all means nothing, right? It means nothing. Why did I think it was so important? All these things.
Well, don't sweat the small stuff. It says it's all small stuff.
It's all small stuff.
That's what the book says. Yeah.
Yeah, because somehow in our human experience, in the moment, and in our body, and in our memory, and in our mind, and whatever, and all the different things, and our tiredness and our stress, whatever it is, it's like we respond however we respond, you know? And like in that moment, especially growing up and all this stuff, like sometimes, I mean, we always like look back and go, how did I think that was, why was I so stressed about that thing?
Yeah.
I think that's important. Like, yeah, I mean, life is it's not promised every, you know, every waking moment.
Right.
So yeah, those are great perspectives.
But
all right, so what do we want to?
That's what Tula just said, something like that. And Marianne Williamson, she knows Marianne Williamson.
Oh yeah, quote from Marianne Williamson: "Whatever I give to others, I am giving to myself." So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
Okay, I would like to play now a clip that was sent to me by Sonia. So thank you, Sonia, who's in the room. Sent me a clip of a, I guess it's like a reading or a sharing for this thing called Our Daily Bread. And they're speaking about death in this, and so yeah, she had wanted me to share it, and I thought I would. So I'm just gonna grab that and share the recording.
Hi, and welcome to today's reading from the Our Daily Bread devotional. It was written by Po Fung Chia, and she titled it Living Well. Free funerals for the living. That's the service offered by an establishment in South Korea. Since it opened in 2012, more than 25,000 people, from teenagers to retirees, have participated in mass living funeral services, hoping to improve their lives by considering their deaths. Officials say the simulated death ceremonies are meant to give the participants a truthful sense of their lives, inspire gratitude, and aid in forgiveness and reconnection among family and friends. These words echo the wisdom given by the teacher who wrote Ecclesiastes. Death is the destiny of everyone. The living should take this to heart. Death reminds us of the brevity of life and that we only have a certain amount of time to live and love well. It loosens our grip on some of God's good gifts, such as money, relationships, and pleasure, and frees us to enjoy them in the here and now as we store up treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal. As we remember that death may come knocking anytime, perhaps it'll compel us to not postpone that visit with our parents, delay our decision to serve God in a particular way, or compromise our time with our children for work. With God's help, we can learn to live wisely.
All right, cool.
Nice stuff. I like
Yes, great. So yeah, if anyone has any comments or thoughts about that, I thought it was quite interesting, this ceremony. I've heard of grief ceremonies before. Like I've been thinking a lot about how we only grieve collectively at funerals. Like I've been thinking about this for the last few years. And one of the healers I work with was talking about how in like Burkina Faso and other places, but specifically there, how they have these grief ceremonies every year. And you actually go and you grieve like different things. Like, you know, there's all these grievings that you have all the time, right? That you get to actually grieve. And I was like, oh, that's actually it's probably very good for everyone's mental health. And then this whole thing with, you know, actually having like this sort of ceremony around like actually like your death, like your own death, and thinking about that. I mean, it must be so powerful to do that. I feel like I need to participate in an event like this or something soon. So
well, they say there are people that have their own coffin in their house. They're sitting there. And in America, apparently, I heard in America, people dress up, go in the coffin and have people come around. Apparently, they take this thing to the next level. They actually do it. They live in, but they do
mean, yeah, it is a part of
life.
Yeah, it is a part of life.
I think it's pretty ironic that the moment you're born, your countdown on death begins.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
But to say that's what causes most stress in people's life, because that's why
the moment you're born, your countdown on death begins. Like I just never really like I know death and birth are so close, but like I like today I'm just like, whoa, like everyone's sentences are really like I'm just digesting them from everyone. So
yeah, it's like one just merges right into the next, right?
The next, yeah, it really does. Wow.
But Tula might be able to comment on this, because they say one of the reasons that people go to religion is just because of that. They're scared of this death, so they pick on something. It's just a theory, but Tula might have run into people that maybe think along that line. I don't see it that way. I think we're living and I try to do the best, and if I die, well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Tula.
Well, I mean, I think that, you know, that has to do with you know, our inner life and our culture. We don't, North American culture, we really seem to be afraid of death and want to shove it away, which is too bad, because if you deal with your inner life and the feelings that you have and the fears that you have and all those other things, like the things that you did wrong and your so-called sins, and you keep all of those things inside, which we're supposed to do because we're all supposed to be, you know, happy and successful, and we don't want everybody to know about how terrible we really are. And then, of course, the Christian God, anyway, that I don't believe this is the Christian God in any way, but up until now has been imaged as kind of like a punishing God. You're supposed to be afraid. So of course you're going to be afraid of death, even if you're religious, because let's
Yeah.
face it, everyone's a sinner. So it's all very complicated.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, very much so. And I feel like, yeah, that depiction and that particular, era of religion and myth that has, or when I say myth, I mean like Jesus as like, this, like just like there's been many, many myths of many, many, like deities and whatnot, but like this particular one and this kind of like, and this whole like just the sin and the, the hell and the fear and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I wonder, like, I always think about, okay, so before that, before we were caught that, well, what are the other older, other indigenous, other ancient, other folks saying about it? You know what I mean? And how are they honoring the death? And when you talk about, some of the spiritual folks in Barbados and stuff like that, and different people, it's like this rejoicing, this song and dance, these other rituals that are actually like they're celebrating in a different way, in a different form. So I just think that all aspects of that are just like quite interesting.
It is.
Yeah.
So every society has its own way of doing it. But I like the ones there in Barbados. The Thai people go to the grave, and you should hear these folks, man. They're singing songs all over the place. They jump in the cymbals, and this is something to see at the graveyard.
Awesome.
You can't help but notice it because they're loud.
Yeah.
So if you're in there, you can't
celebrating
miss
the
it.
life. Yes. Yeah. Yes, because when we're practicing gratitude and we are in that presence, in that present moment, you are grateful for that person's life. You are grateful for all that, even inside your grief, because as you're gonna grieve, like obviously, but there's something about that as well, that energy. Do we want to go to the
song? Sure.
The song?
Poem?
No?
The poem?
Well, the poem, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
To go now.
Go ahead, Eddie. Yes.
Yeah, we're I think we're 3 hours ahead of you guys, so we just have a few things to do.
Okay,
Sure.
no problem.
I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Jimmy and Jasmine.
Listen, Ed, love you, man, and I'm excited to see you, man. I've been thinking about this for a while now.
Many blessings. Thank you. This is actually my first time doing one of these, so.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate you so much for coming. It was so nice to see your kids as well, and thank you for everything that you shared.
I'll invite you. The next one is about business, so you're onto that train. So I'll invite you again for the goodness.
Yeah.
I love you, man. Thanks for seeing you again, bro.
And
love. Okay.
I love you guys. Aww.
I love you guys.
Much appreciated for coming on, my man.
Well, thank you, and many blessings.
Sure.
In the words of the Hawaiian prayer, Ho'oponopono, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
And thank you. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, take care, guys. We'll see you too.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Bye, man. Thanks
Take
again.
care.
Sure.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining.
When I die, when my coffin is carried out, you must never think I am missing this world. Do not shed any tears. Do not lament or feel sorry. I am not falling into a monster's abyss. When you see my corpse carried out, do not cry for my leaving, for I am not leaving. I am arriving at eternal love. When you leave me in the grave, do not say goodbye. Remember, a grave is only a curtain for the paradise behind. You will only see me descending into a grave. Now watch me rise. How can there be an end when the sun sets or the moon goes down? It looks like the end. It seems like a sunset. But in reality, it is the dawn. When the grave locks you up, that is when your soul is free. Have you ever seen a seed planted in earth not rise with new life? Why should you doubt the rise of the seed named human? Have you ever seen a bucket lowered into a well come back empty? Why lament for a soul when it can come back like Joseph from the well? When, for the last time, you close your mouth, your words and soul will belong to the world of no place and no time.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Rumi. I love that point.
Ooh, all right. That was great.
So we can go to-
Yes. Oh, there's so much in there. I need to print that one and have that one nearby. That's a good one.
Oh, no.
And it's exactly what Kieran was saying. They're just right next to each other. Okay, so we're gonna close out with a song that Dad wants us to listen to called "Dancing in the Skies."
Emily. Now enjoy.
What does it look like in heaven? Is it peaceful? Is it free like they say? Does the sun shine bright forever? Have your fears and your pain gone away? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're dancing up in the sky. I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. Tell me what do you do up in heaven? Are your days filled with love and light? Is there music? Is there art and invention? Tell me, are you happy? Are you more alive? 'Cause here on earth it feels like everything good is missing since you left. And here on earth everything's different. There's an emptiness. Oh, I hope you're in the angels' choir. I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. I hope you're dancing up in the sky. I hope you're singing in the angels' choir. I hope the angels know what they have. I bet it's so nice up in heaven since you arrived. Since you arrived.
All right.
Well, that should have opened up some pathways, I think. What a sound. Man.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that song, Dad, and
Awesome.
for all of the
Super.
quotes, the conversation. I just want to open the floor if anyone else has any other things to share before we close off the circle for this evening.
Beautiful. This is my best session so far, people. I love it. It's all about life and death. What can I say,
Yeah.
man? Covers everything.
Oh, awesome. Well,
Thank you very much for the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
thank you.
Enjoy.
Yeah, it's nice to see everyone and be with everyone today. It's really awesome to just talk about this real stuff and actually the celebration of it, actually the other side of it that we don't always really speak about. So it was really nice to have that topic, Dad. So
Don't be scared.
great job with that. Let's just let out a shout of joy
Unmute.
for
You can
life. Yeah,
unmute.
let's unmute. And our sounding out today is about being joy, just having the joy of life, like what he's talking about in the poem. Like,
So-
does a bucket go down and come up without water? Like,
Always.
we ain't gotta worry about nothing.
Yeah,
It really reminds me of that Jesus parable where he says, like the lilies of the valley, they're always clothed, and it's kind of like not worrying thing. Anyways, all right, well, let's do this. We're gonna make a sound of joy, of appreciation, of whatever you're feeling the vibe today. We're just gonna sound that out on 3. 1, 2, 3. Yay!
I love it.
Yes, amazing. Well, thank you everyone again, all your contributions, people like Sonia for sending me the links, everyone who contributed in the conversation, really, really awesome. We'll see you again for the next episode. And if you're on the mailing list, just stay tuned for the next Open Circle event. Bye, everyone.
Guys, thanks very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Love you guys.
Love you.
Take care.
Bono,
Bye.
bono.
All
All right. Nice.
right, take care.